Hey everybody, Nicholas Snow here. Welcome to another special edition of the Nicholas Snow Show. This week I'm celebrating the 36th anniversary of Desert AIDS Project. By the way, my pronouns are he, him, and his. I don't know what you've been doing during the pandemic, but I launched a television network. Yes, in recent months, I have expanded PromoHomo.TV into a full broadcast network with 5 series. The Nicholas Snow Show is among them. And who knew we'd still be in the middle of this pandemic 6 months later? Probably a lot of people did. Not only are we speaking about the experience with my guest of having COVID 19 and getting through it, but my guest today has also been on the front lines. I describe her as a warrior. She's definitely a hero. As an essential worker, she's an LVN. Before I tell you a little bit more about her, I just want to acknowledge. Oh, by the way, I'm not straight, but today my hair is. I am playing around with my look because this is TV. At any rate, for years, Desert AIDS Project has been a sponsor of my media pursuits, but this particular series is not advertorial. I don't do advertorial, which is advertising masquerading as news. I only do journalism, and it's easy for me to report about Desert AIDS Project because I'm a grateful client of DAP, benefiting from many of their services, and I like to say that I'm living powerfully with HIV with their help. They're a huge part of my success. So I want to definitely put that out there. So Kimmie Miller is an LVN and she's the charge nurse at Desert AIDS Project. And she stepped up big time with her colleagues as they used their institutional knowledge to rapidly respond to the coronavirus pandemic. Yet Kimmie and some of her colleagues, who have gone public with their stories as well, caught the virus. Desert AIDS Project has developed a very important section of their website linked from the very top of the home page. And about that particular resource, they say the best way to protect our community from any emerging health concern is with useful information. And they have given all sorts of questions and answers and next step to participate in the COVID-19 triage clinic at Desert AIDS Project, which at this point in the pandemic has already tested thousands of people. So with that said, I'm going to be back with Kimmie after this. By the way, this is the fourth of 6 particular episodes celebrating Desert AIDS Project 36th anniversary. If you happen to be watching live, if you comment live, your question or comment may be put on the screen. Although I find most viewers watch the shows after the fact, but I want you to know that that is available for you. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show. You know, I love her. She's been helping take care of my health for years. Welcome, Kimmie.
Hi, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm just so moved that you're here because I don't think you've done a broadcast interview before.
No, My last one was my essential worker of the week, which was not supposed to be something I was talking in. So it was a little scary to say the least. She put the mic in my face. I was like, I don't know what to say.
Well, at least you had time to prepare for this, and
Yes.
my interviews are very conversational. So we could be sitting around your kitchen table, although if we were, we would be surrounded by lots and lots of kids.
Yes.
So one of the really important points to make is how Desert AIDS Project and similar organizations throughout the world really have used their institutional knowledge, their institutional memory to respond to another virus, in this case, COVID-19.
Correct.
So, talk about, from your experience working on staff at Desert AIDS Project, um, how the COVID-19 clinic came about.
So we actually started in what used to be the old clinic, and we took a Friday and completely emptied it, sanitized it, and stocked it. And then over the weekend, they decided that they wanted to use the dock, or what used to be the dock, as it had more rooms. It was easier to get in and out of. We wouldn't have to expose more people than needed. They could just use the dock ramp and come in. And so we moved everything over to the dock clinic instead, and opened up on Monday morning to see patients.
For clarity for the people who are viewing that may not know, is the doc is Desert AIDS Project sexual health clinic.
Correct.
And the reason that Desert AIDS Project had an empty clinic to consider devoting to COVID is because literally a week or two before the pandemic hit, after 5 intense years of work and decades of planning, Desert AIDS Project moved into expanded brand new clinics. So it's extremely cosmic and serendipitous that the facilities were available. Now, as a frontline worker, Kimmie, I imagine that your heart breaks when you see the different stressors that frontline workers are experiencing in more harsh environments, such as intensive care units and for example, so how is your experience, do you think, similar yet the same for people that are on the front lines in different ways?
So being here in the clinic, um, our patients potentially are as sick as they are. We have had to send a few patients to the hospital from here, but for the most part, um, they're concerned that they could have been exposed. They woke up with a fever or the sniffles, or what could be a cold, but because of what's going on, they're coming here to be tested. Um, so we don't necessarily have all of the same concerns as you would if you were an ICU nurse. But the potential is there just because we're seeing patients, like I said, that we have had to send some to the hospital that ended up in ICU. So we're wearing all the protective equipment that we should be. We're limiting how many people are actually seeing the patients face to face. And then we make sure that we have a decontamination process when they're done seeing patients that they're going through, or all of us are going through, to come back to what would be considered the clean side of the clinic, so that you don't have to worry about taking all of that home to your family.
I just want to go on the record by saying that I did have a COVID test at the COVID triage clinic. I initially called the screening number. I was connected with you. You asked me a variety of questions. I was then connected to someone who scheduled me for my appointment. I was able to go to my appointment where I was seated I was masked. I was seated in a very socially distanced manner. I didn't even need to be closer to 6 feet from the front desk staff. Uh, and the nurse or physician assistant, I'm not sure their title, but when it was time for me to take my test, they brought me into their office, asked me questions, explained the process. They gave me a simple needle stick in my finger. I waited for about 20 minutes back in the lobby and then went back in, and I received a negative result. At the time, the education was that it would be great if everybody had a test, because then we would know our status and use that information. And but then I know there was a big demand for testing, and also it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that I had no symptoms. I had no reason to think I had been exposed. And I think that in that situation, you do the finger stick. Is it true that if someone has a different set of symptoms, that you do a different type of test, or is that the initial screening for everyone?
So if you are symptomatic, or you know or believe that you are exposed to somebody that has tested positive, then we will do the nasal swab and the throat swab. That is the gold standard right now for finding out if you have coronavirus. We used to use the swab that, people say tickles your brain. That is no longer the test that we're using. LabCorp has changed the test that we have. It now only goes 1 centimeter into each nostril for 10 seconds. And then we also swab the inside of your mouth. We use 2 sites just to make sure that we have the most accurate sample. If you already tested positive, or everybody thought they had COVID in January, February. If you think that you were sick previously, then we will use the antibody test, which is the finger stick or the blood draw, depending. And that will tell you if your body has produced antibodies. If you do have antibodies, then you can contact Livestream and potentially donate your plasma, which will help the people that are in ICU fight this virus.
Which leads me to my next question. So there are at least there are 4 members of Desert AIDS Project staff who have gone public with their COVID diagnosis. They have done so because of their dual role as advocates. And those individuals start from the top with CEO David Brinkman. Your colleague, Dr. Christopher Fultz, went public with his COVID diagnosis, working right there with you in the COVID clinic. One of the reasons he went public was because he's HIV negative and wanted to donate his plasma, but there is a policy in effect with the Red Cross that prohibits gay men from donating blood. So he wanted to be part of the public education around that issue. And then Dr. Talika Singh, an infectious disease specialist, went public as well because she wanted to showcase her own plasma donation process.
Correct.
Which leads me to the fact that you actually got COVID-19. Tell me the timing of your COVID diagnosis, whether you experienced symptoms, how long you were in quarantine. Basically, describe the process from diagnosis to being able to return to work.
So I didn't even know I had it, actually. It was the end of March, about the 25th of March. I woke up with a sore throat. My grandson was teething and had a runny nose, so I actually just thought I had caught a cold from him. But knowing what was going on, I pretty much stayed away from everybody. I ended up with a headache that was horrendous. Thought chopping off my head would probably feel better than the headache. Other than that, I really only had a sore throat. I was very, very fortunate. I did end up losing my taste and smell. for about 3 weeks. And I came back to work after 7 days. For healthcare employees, the standard is 7 days from the day of your test and 3 days without symptoms. So the taste and smell does not count. It's respiratory symptoms. So a cough, the runny nose, sore throat, any of the fever, if you had one, which I didn't, any of those symptoms, then you need to be completely without them for 72 hours and then you could return to work. For the normal public, it's 10 days from day of test and then 3 days without symptoms, and then they're cleared to also go back to work or school or whatever they're doing. So I was back to work in a week.
You may not even know the information, the answer to this question, nor would they, but do you believe that you were exposed to COVID in the function of your job? And if so, do you think it was a shortage of PPE ever an issue for your team? No, a shortage was not an issue.
We've been
So,
very fortunate with PPE here. We are in collaboration with I always forget the word, kind of like a consortium, I guess, for the Riverside County and San Bernardino County. And we've been getting a lot of help from them with PPEs, and they help us find it. If there's a grant to get it, we've been very fortunate that they've helped us. So we really haven't had a lack of the protective part, the masks, the gowns. There was a shortage slightly for the head covering, but I don't consider that an essential part if my hair is covered or not. As long as my face is covered and my clothes are covered, that's what I think is the most important part. But we haven't had really, like I said, other than that one thing, which we actually ended up getting before we were out, this clinic hasn't had a shortage, fortunately.
well, that's good to know. So you have a large and very connected, loving, and active family.
Yes.
How did you handle a COVID diagnosis in that environment?
It wasn't really that big of a deal. I mean, other than the 2-year-old grandson, trying to keep him back. But just a lot of hand washing and wiping off surfaces. Nobody else contracted COVID or even had antibodies in my house. There's 10 people in my house, including me, and nobody else got it. So I'm pretty excited about that, that nobody else got anything. So washing hands and keeping your distance really does work.
Fantastic. I was able to donate 2 webcams to Desert AIDS Project. I had brand new webcams that I had never used. I had taken them one of them out of the box to consider using them. By the way, anybody viewing, I think that DAP still needs webcams. So go to desertaidsproject.org. And this is my 4th episode about Desert AIDS Project, and I've forgotten in all 3 episodes to say that every single article of clothing I'm right now is from Revivals. And
Me
for those
too.
people, oh, fantastic! And for those people who are watching who have the benefit of living in or visiting the Coachella Valley, Revivals is a series of thrift stores, 3 of them, one in Palm Springs, one in Cathedral City, and one in Palm Desert. And they're new and gently used items that are the gently reused items are donated to Revivals, and 100% of proceeds from Revivals are donated to patient care services at Desert AIDS Project. And over half my wardrobe is from Revivals, and a lot of the furnishings in my this home and others. So I want to give a shout out for them. Is there anything in? Oh, what is the process now for people in the Coachella Valley to access the COVID triage clinic? Is it similar to what I've already defined? And as a matter of fact, for people who have tuned in late, talk about that process from start to finish.
So you can call the main Desert AIDS Project number and the operators can connect you to us, but we do have a direct number. It is 760-992-0407. You will listen to a message from Dr. Foltz. I believe it's between 2 and 5 minutes. I haven't heard it recently, but that gives you all the latest up-to-date information. Once you listen to that, it will ask you to press 2 to speak to a screener, which currently is myself, Dr. Ann Dew, and Frank Roman from our community health department. He's over in this clinic also helping us triage people to figure out which tests they need. After a series of questions, then you'll be sent to the scheduler for scheduling. Our schedulers also are checking in patients and doing billing and central registration. So you may get a voicemail. Just leave a name and a callback number and they will get back to you as soon as they can. We usually tell people within 24 hours, sometimes sooner. And then come to your appointment. That's pretty much it. It's fairly painless.
Do me a favor, because I'm going to create a banner and put it on the screen. What is the hotline number again?
760-992-0407.
Let me make sure that I have done it correctly. I have.
Correct.
Fantastic. And they can also go to desertaidsproject.org. So continue.
So if for some reason, like I said, there's the three of us answering phones, and sometimes, we've had over 400 calls before 2:00 in the afternoon. So
I just called it COVID-10. It's COVID-19. So let me fix that, which I have done.
If you get rolled over and you start listening to Dr. Foltz's message again, that just means that everybody's on the phone. So bear with us. We will get to you as soon as we can. It will have you go through the cycle, I believe 2, maybe 3 times before it asks you to call back. I don't think that has happened. I'm not quite sure, but we do our best to answer them as fast as we can. But just know that once you get through, you'll get the same attention that everybody else gets. We answer questions, and if you need to speak to a doctor, then Dr. Dew is available to talk to people as well.
Well, I went through the whole process and it was painless, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. I have an insurance that covers it. I imagine you accept insurance. Are you able to offer COVID-19 testing for people that don't have the ability to pay? What do you do in that circumstance?
It doesn't matter. There's no out-of-pocket cost to the patient, whether their insurance pays or not, or whether they have insurance or not. It doesn't matter. We do ask for insurance information when they call not the screeners, but the schedulers will ask for insurance information. If you don't have it, it doesn't hinder your ability to get an appointment.
Is there, Kimmie, is there anything that you would like to add to the conversation that we haven't talked about at all?
Just if you end up being positive and you're able to donate plasma, it's very, the process leading up to it is a little tedious, lots and lots of questions, lab draw. They ask you the same question probably 100 times before you actually get to donate, but each donation will help 5 people fighting COVID-19. So if you end up being positive and you have antibodies, I recommend that you go through LifeStream. They're the local blood bank. And
when you say LifeStream, is it LIFE stream? Okay, LifeStream.
Mm-hmm. They have a banner on their website, and you can just click on it. All the information's there. The link to the questionnaires there, and there's a phone number if you have more questions that the website doesn't answer for you. There's a 909 number that you can call, and they'll answer your questions.
What inspired you to become a nurse?
My grandparents. I took care of them before they passed away, and my grandmas told me that that's what I needed to do, so I did.
How old were you when you were caregiving for them?
In my late teens.
So you had the experience of showing up in a very loving, compassionate way at a significant time in your family's lives,
Mhm.
and that transformed your future.
Yep, pretty much.
Uh, One of the things I'd like to address, since we have the opportunity to do so, is that Desert AIDS Project is still doing HIV testing
Mhm.
and connecting people that test positive to care, connecting people that are HIV negative to education that will allow them to remain negative. I know that your focus right now is primarily within the COVID clinic, but why don't you describe the HIV testing process as well? And by the way, I talked about Desert, this is for my audience, I've talked about Desert AIDS Project having really significant institutional memory and knowledge, but one of the things that Desert AIDS Project and about 50 other allied organizations did in the Greater Palm Springs, Coachella Valley area was launch and foster the Get Tested Coachella Valley campaign, which became not only a global model but an international model, and it resulted in two invitations to the White House, not during the current administration, but two invitations to the White House for CEO David Brinkman. So there's some really important institutional knowledge that comes into play and that is still in play. But talk about the whole process for pursuing an HIV test and so forth.
So I'm not sure if they're still doing community testing as much currently. Um, that would
I
be a
don't think they are.
big
I
question,
don't think that, yeah, I
unfortunately.
don't believe they are. But
But if you wanted to come into the clinic, um, you could come to our STD clinic, which we call the doc, and they'll test you there, STDs and HIV both. Um, or there you can call the number if you want to get questions answered before you come. You can call the main DAP line, which is 760-323-2118, and ask to speak to somebody in the STD clinic or the doc clinic, and they can connect you to David, who is our RN in the clinic, or to Ruth, one of the educators that's also in there with him, and then they can have you come in and get tested.
so anyone can also go to desertaidsproject.org who is in the greater Coachella Valley area. And I'm going to put up the COVID hotline again. That's DAP's COVID-19 hotline for their triage clinic. The number is there. The website is there. Kimmie, thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank
What
you.
would you and you, by the way, I know it's not your birthday. You're sharing Dr. Foltz's office for the broadcast. It's his birthday, and there's the balloons in the banner in the background, in case people are wondering. So, happy birthday to Dr. Foltz, and thank you for all you're doing. What would you like to say in conclusion?
Just if you have questions, call. Don't hesitate. Don't think anything is a stupid question. We'd rather have you call and get the correct answer than just believe what you read on Facebook or what you see on the news. It's always better to call and get the answer from the experts.
Kimmie, I love and appreciate you for
Thank
your role in my life all these years, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And also for your service to our community as a whole. And I've told you this before. I'm not the first person to have said it, but your family needs a reality TV show.
you. Yes, I've heard that a lot.
Yes. Thank you for your service. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sweetheart. You too.
Thank you so much. So, Kimmie Miller, and Kimmie, if you stay there, we can talk for a minute after the show. I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast as much as I have. Wherever you are in the world, there are ways to access more information about the COVID-19 pandemic and the opportunities to fight it. Of course, practice social distancing, wear a mask, take all of these things very seriously. I do. And I want to thank you for consuming, and hopefully not only this episode, but all of my special episodes focusing on the 36th anniversary of Desert AIDS Project. And until next time, I'm Nicholas Snow.